Mr. Speaker, I would never detract from the accomplishments of our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces. Our government will always work hard to making sure that that they're truly served. I'm honored to serve our men and women in uniform. I'm going to continue to work hard for them every single day to making sure they have the right tools, the right capabilities, and right care so they can carry out their missions. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
Well, Mr. Speaker, the Defence Minister has been telling so many fictional stories that he can't keep his facts straight. For example, in 2015, the Minister claimed that General Vance coined the term that he was the architect for his work back in 2006 on Operation Medusa. But that can't be true because General Vance didn't take command in Afghanistan until 2009. Now, the Minister's fabrication was no mistake. This was his personal choice. If the Prime Minister lacks the good judgment to fire this Minister, will the Defence Minister do the honourable thing and resign?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, I would never detract from the great work of our men and women. Our government is focused on making sure that we provide the right care for our troops. That's why the Prime Minister mandated me to conduct a thorough defence policy review to making sure we do a thorough assessment that our troops can have all the right tools that so they can carry out their missions, and that's exactly what we're doing, Mr. Speaker. Thank you.
The Honourable Member for Selkirk, Interlake, Eastman.
I don't hear much sincerity from the Defence Minister today. No apology for his remarks and exaggerations. The military's feelings towards our Defence Minister has gone from disappointment to outrage. Former Air Force Commander General Bill Carr said, and he wrote, "Our Defence Minister's image is at best one of an insecure veteran in a field he professes to know. For the good of the Canadian Forces, his departure would be a relief. He has no alternative but to step down." Mr. Speaker, does the Defence Minister have any honour, integrity, or humility left? Will he do the honourable thing and step down?
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the former general for his service to his country. We continue to work hard. Our government will continue to work hard at making sure our men and women have the right tools, and every single day to making sure that they have the right care, the right tools, and our defence policy review that we have conducted a thorough analysis on will do just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, being sorry is not good enough when you've lost the trust of our men and women in uniform. Individuals who pad their military records can be court-martialed and face serious consequences. Now, the Minister has a seat at the Cabinet table, but does he think that he deserves to be treated differently than other soldiers that he served with?
Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I have the privilege of serving our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces as a Minister of National Defence. And every single day I will work hard, as I've always done, to making sure that they have all the right tools, the right funding, and the care for them to carry out their missions. And we'll do that every single day. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Order. It's entirely appropriate for members to ask tough questions and be aggressive in their questions. It's not appropriate to interrupt when another member is speaking.
The Honourable Member for Charlebourg, Haute-Saint-Charles. Mr. Speaker, the Minister's misuse of alternative facts has so tarnished his reputation that he's lost all credibility. He has lost the trust of our soldiers and shamed our veterans. Canadians no longer believe him. He's become a laughingstock, and our allies won't be able to take him seriously. The Prime Minister has shown a lack of judgment by not kicking him out of the Cabinet. As a veteran, I ask the Minister, who is a veteran himself, if he still has some honour left. And if so, why doesn't he resign?
For defence.
Mr. Speaker, I understand the member opposite has a job to do. I, too, will also making sure that I, as Minister of National Defence, making sure we have all the right tools. We work very closely with our coalition partners to making sure that we take, as we have done as a government, taking a leadership role at NATO, increased our contribution to the Iraq mission, to making sure our men and women have all the right necessary tools to carry out the missions, whether it's home and abroad. And we will do just that. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honourable Member for Laurier-Sainte-Marie. Mr. Speaker, earlier, the Prime Minister refused to answer these questions, so let's try asking them to the Minister of Defence himself. Why are the Liberals refusing to have a commission of inquiry, a public one, into the Afghan detainees scandal? Why did the Minister of Defence tell the Conflict of Interest Commissioner that he didn't know anything about this scandal because he was only a reservist? Would he be so kind as to tell this House what role exactly he actually played in Afghanistan. It's high time Canadians learned the truth.
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I am pleased to speak with any officer of Parliament. I've spoken to the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner on this subject, and she is satisfied with that, and she considers this matter closed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Esquimalt, Saanich, Sooke.
Well, Mr. Speaker, a meaningful apology must be followed by changed behaviour, transparency and accountability, and that's just not what we're getting from this minister. The Defence Minister told the Conflict of Interest Commissioner that he knew nothing about the transfer of Afghan detainees to face torture. However, both he and his supervisor in Afghanistan have said that he played a key role in intelligence liaison with local Afghan forces. Can the Minister of Defence tell us this? How can he simultaneously have known nothing about prisoner transfers to local Afghan authorities and at the same time have been Canada's key liaison person with these same forces?
Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I'm proud of the work that our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces and our civilians have conducted in Afghanistan. As I stated, I am pleased to speak with any officer of Parliament. I have spoken to the Conflict of Interest and Ethics Commissioner, and she considers she is satisfied with the answer, and she considers the matter closed. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
For Barrie Innisfil.
Question is, how does the minister explain making what he calls a mistake? Standing in this House and saying he owns a mistake without any explanation as to why he made it is not contrition, Mr. Speaker, it's deflection. No one disputes the minister's service, but why did he feel justified in so blatantly exaggerating his record? Our troops need a minister who has their back, not someone so eager to pat himself on his. Will the minister stop with the Prime Minister's talking points and explain to Canadians why did he fabricate the story?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, I take every opportunity to making sure that we highlight the great work of our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces. Whether it's taking the trips into Iraq, making sure that they have the right necessary tools. I just recently was in Malaysia, where we had two of our ships also there, highlighting of the great work that they do in the Asia Pacific. Mr. Speaker, I will always highlight the great work of the men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces, like I always done. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The honourable member for Beauport-Limoilou.
Et Gloria du Comte. Partout.
Everywhere that right and glory lead. Mr. Speaker, this is the motto of the 6th Field Regiment, where I had the honour of performing my military service. Soldiers follow the orders of their superiors, not out of fear, but because they know that these orders are given to protect our country and our honour. The Minister of Defence broke that bond of trust. He's lost moral authority, so will he do the honourable thing and resign?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
I do have the privilege of serving as the Minister of National Defence. I want to be making sure that our government provides all the necessary tools, and that's exactly what we're doing with our Defence Policy Review, Mr. Speaker, to making sure we've done a thorough analysis, so making sure that they have all the right tools, the right funding, and most importantly, the right care, so they can carry out their missions at home and abroad. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Opposition House Leader.
Mr. Speaker, the Minister of Defence has a huge credibility problem, and every time he stands up, he digs himself deeper into the credibility hole. He is tarnishing the reputation of the Prime Minister. He is tarnishing the reputation of this government abroad. But worstly, he is tarnishing the reputation of our military. Nobody questions this man's honour and what he did when he served this country in the military. We are questioning his judgment and his honour today. Will he do the right thing for our men and women in uniform and step aside?
Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, as I stated, I would never want to detract any accomplishments from our Canadian Armed Forces. Our government is focused on making sure our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces have all the necessary tools to making sure that they do their job. Whether it's domestic operations supporting Canadians, or whether it's taking the increased leadership role in NATO, or increasing the fight against Daesh, Mr. Speaker, to making sure that they all have the necessary tools, and that's exactly what our government is going to do. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honourable Opposition House Leader.
Well, Mr. Speaker, he's already distracted from the good work that the men and women in uniform have done and are doing. That's done. He can now try to make it right by giving them their honor back. So, Mr. Speaker, if our men and women in uniform try to steal valor and try to take credit for something that they didn't do in the military, there is a consequence in terms of discipline, in terms of the trust that they will have lost with their colleagues. Does the Minister of Defence not understand that he has broke this code of conduct, that he has broke trust? The only fix is for him to step aside, let our men and women in uniform have a leader who they can actually trust today.
The Honourable Minister of National Defence.
Mr. Speaker, we are focused on making sure that we provide all the necessary tools of our Canadian Armed Forces to making sure that they actually have all the necessary tools when we, as a government, ask our folks to send them on important missions, Mr. Speaker. I have a privilege of serving in the National Defence. I'm honoured to serve our men and women in the Canadian Armed Forces. I'm honoured to be able to stand up as a representative of this government, as working through the Defence Policy Review, to making sure that they have all the necessary tools and the care for the men and women who serve us. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.